On the breakdown tonight, we delve deep into the All Blacks RWC squad. RWC winner Wyatt Crockett joins in the debate. Is Ryan Crotty the right choice? And we're back with Mitre 10 Cup madness with the good, the bad and the ugly. It's all here tonight on the breakdown.
Hello and welcome to The Breakdown. Yes, we're only a couple of weeks away from the Rugby World Cup. Last week, the All Blacks named their Rugby World Cup squad. It was a Wednesday. We've had time to digest it, to come together, to chat and talk about all the things that are relevant. Now, of course, as well, the Mitre 10 Cup. Great action going on. This is your team tonight. Looking forward to this. We've got an extra one. Here he is. Wyatt Crockett, Justin Marshall to John Kerwin, Ali Williams joins us. And Crocky, how's the farewell tour going? Because it's a long one. It seems to be going on forever.
Yeah, well, we just staggered things, you know. But like, I'm loving getting back involved with Tasman, and obviously we've got a pretty...
the Super Rugby side.
Oh, yeah.
Tasman. But we're keeping our feet well.
How stacked is your team?
Well, we've got a good side, but we haven't done anything yet. We've just won a couple of games.
Good answer.
Oh, that's it. That's typical. Hey, look at him grinning over there.
They're so
Ali.
professional, Crocky, these days. It's ridiculous. How was Japan, mate? You enjoyed Japan?
Loved it. Great country. Really enjoyed the food.
Yeah.
Wow.
Too much.
Play the front row by any chance? Or?
Yeah, great country. Absolutely loved my time, and the World Cup's going to be fantastic up there.
Is this it? Like, is this it? Or are we waiting? Is there another it after this one? You're not sure? Or
We're looking for an announcement here tonight.
No, I'm not looking for an announcement. I'd just like to get a clear picture in my head when you're going to be available.
Yeah, no, I think this is my last year playing rugby.
Yeah, I think this is my last year playing rugby. I've heard that before.
Yeah.
I have well and truly heard that before. Look, there was so much going on around the world of rugby, so much to talk about. And Steph, a lot of people haven't been afraid to tell us what they think about the All Blacks right now.
Absolutely not. But first in news, South African rugby player Apiwe Dianti has tested positive on his B sample for anabolic steroids. So he's been formally charged with a doping offence, so he can either admit to the charge and accept his punishment, which is likely to be a 4-year ban from rugby, or he can plead not guilty and attend a hearing which could potentially reduce his sentence. So he's probably likely to plead not guilty because he's been pleading his innocence this whole way through. In other news, former England rugby wing Christian Wade has been dropped from his NFL team, the Buffalo Bills, even after this impressive touchdown in his first NFL game.
This is fun to watch. I'm not sure any of us. Maybe, what role could you play? Anyone got a quarterback, Marshall?
Maybe quarterback all day.
Oh, no.
Please.
Untouchable. Old untouchable, the old halfback.
You
Same
come
old
to the
thing.
right person.
Untouchable.
Oh, yes.
I'd be the
Up
guy
front.
that put the fountain on the coach.
Oh, that's
That'd be
you?
my only role. Yeah, put the
Big
Gatorade
squads,
thing on
big
the
wide
thing, yeah.
squads, Jake.
Kicker,
No,
me.
you...
I
Kicker.
can't kick, but you go on kick then go off. How good would that be? You can play for like 30 years and they get like $5 million a year.
And you could play the game without touching the ball.
Yeah.
That's, you know, be one of those...
Wouldn't be nearly big enough. Those guys are humongous.
Oh,
We weren't being realistic, by the way, Crocky.
Yeah.
It's pure sarcasm. I'll be in the NFL. Let's clear
All right,
it
you're
up
quarterback.
now.
All right, yeah, whatever you need to be. Steph, what else is happening? Let's
From
get
you
serious.
guys. So as Jeff said earlier, everyone seems to be having a crack at New Zealand at the moment. Firstly, there was Aussie shock jock Alan Jones. Now, he has had this to say. These people are not working in New Zealand because they're not good enough. Now, he's talking about coaches in Australia. It's widely accepted that a Kiwi, Rob Penny, will coach the Waratahs and Dave Rennie will coach the Wallabies in 2020. For goodness sake, if we're going to take a chance with an Australian coach.
Marshy, this is fascinating to me, the fact that Alan Jones... What relevance has he got in the game of rugby union in Australia right now? And the fact, if you look at our record across the globe about what managing to do with teams, surely a Kiwi would do a good job in Australia.
Well, look, I think those two names are very well capable of turning things around with Australian rugby. So, first of all, that's the point that you've really got to focus on. The second one is, gentlemen, an Australian coach, who would that be? Yeah. Like, you tell me who jumps out of the woodwork that goes, yes, all right, there's an Australian coach.
Yeah, I mean,
Eddie Jones is probably the only one I could think of.
Yeah, and let's remember this. He's a shock jock now, and he'd hate hearing that because he is. I mean, he talked about Deshinda a few weeks ago and got all the popularity. This is just getting his numbers up. So I think he's disappointing because he has got a lot to offer the game, and he's got a really good opinion. However, I'm with Marshy. The interesting thing for them is there's not a lot of jobs, right? There's 3 big jobs. They all go overseas, the Australian coaches. And the interesting thing is that that's not true. So our coaches, there's only 5 big jobs and probably only 10, but guys go overseas for experience. So that's like, you're kidding yourself. That's just trying to get your numbers up.
I think
on
this
the
is
radio.
going to go away, and gone away very, very quickly. What hasn't gone away, though, is something that's come out of England, Steph.
Stop there. So then Stuart Barnes, who we all know from Sky UK, has also written for The Times, saying New Zealand, the most positive attacking team in the world, have their flip side. They're also the most cynical cheats at a breakdown. So we asked Ian Foster what he had to say about these comments today.
Well, there's an element of truth that I guess we picked 3-7, sort of, you know, but I guess if you've been watching our tests, I don't think we've played Artie at 7, have we? We've played him at 8 and 6, so it's, but he's got obviously he is a 7, he can play those different positions. No, the rest of it is we pick the players that we think best suit our game, and you know, and Matt, Sam and Artie, they're good on the ground, but they're also good with the ball in hand. They're good defensively, and so you look at the whole range of things. So I think, you know, trying to pick, if people think that we're picking players just to slow opposition ball down, I think they're not quite seeing the real picture.
And of course, Barnes has come back again with his response, calling the world's best team for most of the century a side that cheat with a degree of cynicism clearly catches the eye. Doesn't mean it's wrong though, doesn't mean I was having a pop at New Zealand either. If the All Blacks do not win the World Cup this time around, be sure the side that does will know how to slow down a breakdown, legal and illegal.
Yeah, look, we all know Stuart Barnes really well, Steph. We've come across some very respectful, loves our game. Marshy, I look at this, I look at the way he's gone about this. It's, to me, just using the word cheat. If he'd gone push the boundaries, used anything else, I think this would have just slid by and no one would complain. That's the word, though, that no one likes to hear when you're talking about any player or any side.
No, and I think it's with England and, you know, for the main part, it's a hang-off of Richie McCaw, which they actually used the word cheat when they was describing him as a player, which was totally unfounded. You know, he just pushed the boundaries. I think Barnsley's just trying to wind us up.
Do you agree with the fact? Let's be honest, though. We talk about that part of the game. That's the opportunity where you have to challenge. You can stop the momentum of the opposition. Do you see and do you talk about it in your squads, the fact, you know, that's an area that you have to focus on, and how far are you prepared to take it when you're playing?
Yeah, like I think you mentioned it at the start about us being the most attacking team, and I genuinely believe that New Zealand teams are probably some of the most aggressive teams at the breakdown, but that's because we want to get the ball and we want to attack off that turnover ball, because for a long time now, All Black teams and New Zealand teams have been world-class at attacking off that turnover ball.
Yeah, look, I think it's a mixture around. He's just trying to wind us up. He always does. He always will. I sat on a train with him for 2 hours, so feel my pain there. I mean, geez, the stuff that he talks about.
I'm just trying to think whose pain it was.
It's pretty tricky. But at the end of the day, it's all about our game and what you can get away with it. I don't think it's cheating. It's what we designed rugby for. It's pushing the boundaries. It's finding out where the line is with the referee. And until they come in with a second referee or something that adjudicates something, listen, 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 good sir. Until they come into something with like strong boundaries, this is what you can, this is what you can't do. We, as rugby players, and we all know that, we're going to find the line that you can push a referee to. And that's part of the art. That's why Richie was so good. That's why Fitzy was so good. People like George Gregan were so good.
Josh was the same. Josh Cronfeld was the same.
Yeah, exactly. You push the boundaries
but hang on.
what you can get away with.
I agree, but hang on a minute. They all push the boundaries. I mean, France,
Yeah,
England
absolutely.
do. I mean, it's ridiculous. And if you want to call it cheating, I don't really give a toss, because they cheat as well, right? So whatever you want to call it, what annoys me about Barnsley at the moment, I think there's some bigger issues in our game. And the biggest issue in the game is that rule relevant anymore with the amount of mistakes that referees are making trying to control it? 18 different decisions at the ruck that a referee has to make. We all know as ex-players that the refs go into the ruck with maybe 3, and they tell you about it before the game. But how many times in the last 5 weeks has the ruck caused a problem for everyone? So we need to look at that, and that's what we should be talking about, rather than calling each other cheats.
There's genuinely not enough support for referees. Our games move so fast, but yet we're still stuck in the era where there's one ref marshalling this game that's moved on.
And the most
personal view.
contestable part of the game is the
Exactly.
fact it's so difficult for referees to play with. Right, let's have a look at it. I know it happened 6 days ago. We haven't had a chance to talk about it. This is the Rugby World Cup squad going over to Japan this year, and plenty for us to debate and discuss. And of course, no one of us here probably thought that Owen Franks was not going to be amongst one of the front rowers selected for this Rugby World Cup. Brodie Retallick looks as though he's going to recover. Patrick Tuipulotu played so well in Auckland, he's forced his way into the squad. Surprise selection of Luke Jacobson with just 20 minutes of All Black football under his belt. The 3 sevens selected, the 3 halfbacks have been taken, just the 2 first fives. Then that all-important midfield combination where Ngani Laumapi was desperately unlucky not to get selected. Geordie Barrett fills that utility role, and then the form of George Bridge and Sevu Reece, so good they could not be denied the opportunity to go. Experience in Ioane and Smith. Look, this is an exciting team. It's a great team, but the reaction from all of us, I don't think any of us picked it from the breakdown. Crocky, did you see this non-selection of Owen Franks coming?
Not at all. Genuinely shocked when the team got named, to be honest. But yeah, like it's obviously really hard and a tricky call that they've had to make.
Why have they made it in your view, given all your experience and what you've seen from all of the props and the other fact of the matter, the World Cup they're going to and the way it could be played?
Probably the thing that surprises me the most is the fact that we're going into a World Cup, we're going to knock out rugby, presumably, against probably Northern Hemisphere teams, very strong scrummages. And Owen Franks is obviously world-class, has been for a long time. So that's the bit that sort of puzzles me a bit. Trying to read between the lines, the thinking, I'm guessing they've probably decided on Nepo as the starting tight head. And then they've seen that Owen potentially not ideal for coming off the bench. So that must be the thinking, I think.
Yeah, just from my point of view, and just talking, pre and post all week, for all of us ex-All Blacks, we're really hurting for Franksy because we know how hard it'd be. Everyone thinks, you've had a long career, but it actually gets harder, being dropped with that many test matches. But I think the thing that interests me, Crocker, you might be able to help. So what you're saying to me is that, and we know Atu Moli's on the other side, but what you're saying is that if you are a specialist now, you're only going to take one and everyone else is going to be... So we've got a couple of specialists and everyone else is going to cover both sides. So if one gets injured, what do we do? Just put them on a plane or...?
Mate, that's why it's surprising, But you'd have to ask the coaches that one.
Well, Marshy, Angus Tarvell came out and he talked about the fact that he felt he was the beneficiary of the way the game had gone. The fact his impact off the bench, his mobility, he's been able to show this season in particular, the improvements he made last year. Is that the way, and you see that thinking, you're going, you know what, is that the type of Rugby World Cup that we're expecting, this hard and fast game, which is going to suit our Atu Molis, our Nepo Lalalas?
I think that's absolutely it. Japan is going to be fast, it's going to be hard tracks, it's going to be great weather, and I think the All Blacks, to a degree, will want to try and match what's been happening against them, which is really mobile front rowers that are ball players. And Owe is a great carrier, he's one of the best scrummagers in the world, if not the best, and really good at his core role. But his mobility, he's getting old, and he's not as young as what he used to be and getting around the field as much. I think it's an indication of the way the All Blacks are going to evolve their game plan, something that I think Hansen and co have been holding back. We're going to show you a little bit more, and this is the area where we're going to start to challenge.
So you've heard what Crocky said, though, Ali. You look at that and you listen to the man who's been in this position and knows what it takes to go to Rugby World Cups. Where do you see this sitting?
So the bit to me that I struggle with is, OK, the on-field playing side is one element, and then you look at the other element, and Steve Hansen has always been a very loyal man. It's harder to get out than in sometimes if you're tried and true, if he knows what you're going to deliver. So to me, I struggle or can't understand the fact that he's dropped him at this time. He knows what he's going to do. A World Cup final, semi-final, I still want Owen Franks on there because I know what the scrum's going to be like. I want him on there. During the week, he's the biggest trainer we've got in this environment. He's a great professional. So maybe he doesn't fit your game plan 100% now, but in your squad, I think he fits your game plan. That's why I'm shocked. So in terms of what he's doing on the field, maybe there is something that we don't know about.
But I think there's more to it, because I think I agree with you, and he has been incredibly loyal, and he always has, but he's never been under this amount of pressure as a coach.
I agree.
You know, when you look at the last half a dozen Test matches that they've played, including the Northern Tour and the ones they've played this year, the rest of the world have caught up. And in fact, South Africa have probably got parity with us at the moment. So he's got to evolve. He can't rely on what's been successful in the past. He's got to take the game to a different level.
I agree with you. The fact, and you talked about knockout rugby. I don't know, JK, whether or not we can grind out three games in a row. Is that our best way to go ahead and win a Rugby World Cup? Grinding 3 out rather than going, you know what? Or we play that expansive style, which is, we ground it out here.
Expansive is not going to win a World Cup. I don't care who you think you are. I don't care what the conditions are. You have got external factors, and this is what we learned in 2011 off the back of 2007. You may be the greatest team by 30%, 40%. World Cup final, things change. Referees' decisions change. The game slows down. Players aren't as fast. They don't see the gaps they used to see. To me, that's where an Owen Franks comes into his own, and his game never changes. And that's it.
Yeah, I mean,
just my view.
For me, it's a little bit different. I think Ali's right in a sense is you need a complete game. I mean, South Africa 2015, great performance by Dan Carter with the drop kick. You know, critical moment. We needed a good kicking game. I think the kicking game's changed. What interests me about the props, you know, that's up on the wall there, is that our new attacking weapon. You know, are we going to bring something new to the World Cup where instead of seeing the props outside the ruck, you know, Crotty, where you just take the ball up and you might slip a little one, are we now wanting guys that are going to pass it out the back door to free up guys, you know, like Barrett out wide? So I think, but we're holding that back, right?
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah. Well, look at the likes of Kitsoff. He is playing 2 to 3 in from the edge.
Yeah.
Yep.
And carrying
Sinclair. And we're talking about English props and South African props being more skillful than New Zealand props. What's happening in the rugby world?
So has the scrum... Isn't that Atumoli? Yeah, but he's got no experience. He's really, at this level, he's got no experience. Is this where the gamble's been made? Well, is this where the true gamble has been made? The fact that...
But look at that.
A guy as a ball player...
That's a show and a go, a break and an offload.
Yeah. I mean, is this where they've taken their big risk? We've talked about the first 5 thing. We've debated that.
No.
But could this be the key difference?
No. I'm saying no to you, and my big question to Crotty is, are we now not really worrying about the scrum as much as we used to? Just hold your own and just play footy.
Yeah, look, I think you've got the front rowers that are starting the game and you've got the front rowers that are finishing the game, and that's probably the difference, isn't it? Like the guys that are coming off the bench, they're wanting those guys to be able to really play against tired defences and have a real input there. So
you're saying props never play a whole game anymore?
Exactly, yeah.
You could go for another 6 or 7 years, Crocky, mate.
I do think, however, that off the back of that, the slight variation in the scrum laws, where there's more of an engage now, so you can actually add tempo rather than power to the scrum. So you can add a good clinical hit and then quick ball and not have to muscle up as much in the scrum. So you're talking about dynamic. And I just wonder whether the All Blacks are thinking about that as well as an option.
Look, I mean, I think for me, there's so many things to talk about in that selection, but that was probably the biggest surprise. Well, let's get the thoughts of Ian Foster as they prepare for the Test match coming out of Hamilton. Of course, it's Tonga in their final preparation as they head towards this Rugby World Cup in Japan in 2019.
We're pretty excited with the 31 that we've picked. You know, we've had some guys that have come in a little bit rusty after Super Rugby, and it's taken a little while for us to get the levels that we want. Through those four Test matches, we've seen players sort of really build their game, and there's a real edge about the team now. I mean, everyone wants to go and put their best foot forward, but there's certainly space. You know, I think we've seen, you know, the likes of the last Test where we gave a few guys opportunity in a big game. They took it, and that's just got us into a really healthy spot. For us, it's a key part of the World Cup. It's a chance for us to get a bit of momentum going after that second Bled game, and knowing that our next one's South Africa, and it's going to be a massive game, you know, for what actually happens in that pool. So, you know, we've learned in the past we don't want to go in cold, and if we go in underdone and put guys in cotton wool, that it's really hard to get them up to the level of intensity that happens in a big sort of South African game. So, you know, we're weighing that up with selection. You know, overall our goal is it's important that this performance goes up and up from what we saw in Auckland. Yeah, look, Richie's injury is really good. Gone easy on training today and didn't feel we needed to put him under a lot of contact today, but we'll look at that the next couple of days. But in the meantime, it's a great opportunity for Josh to come in again. You know, he's had a good time with us during the Rugby Championship. It's a good sign when you've got some of your senior players that sort of dancing around ready and enthusiastic and wanting to play. So we've got an exciting couple of months ahead, and the guys know that, and you can see it.
Well, it seems to be a little bit of uncertainty around the All Black selection this week. The fact that we don't know the position of Richie Mo'unga, we don't really know the position of Jack Goodhue as well in the midfield. So they've talked about using this Tonga game as preparation for the Rugby World Cup, their last hit out. So if they can't put their number one team together, JK, does their attitude going into this game change significantly? Because you talk about, do they go with the dual first fives? If Josh Ioane's not going to the Rugby World Cup, do you start him on Saturday?
Well, that's a great question, because tactically, what are you going to do if Mo'unga or Barrett gets a little bit of an injury early in the piece, say to be out for 10 days? Are you going to continue with this dual pivot role? And I think we'll see that on Saturday. I don't know if I agree with it, because I also wanted to ask Marcia a question. Like, you knew that your first five was injured. Would you take Weber or would you take Josh, because you know that that's a more critical position, the double pivot, and just leave the third halfback at home because he's only 10 hours away?
The latter, yeah. I would have backed Brad Weber, who's a total professional in great form, to stay here, play a bit of rugby here. Wow. And if needed, he could be in Japan in a flash and come. And Perenara and, you know, Touch, there was no wood around.
Yeah, mate.
You know, that they don't get injured, but they don't often, those two, get injured at all. That, you know, I think you needed that balance with taking that third first five, personally.
So if they play Josh this week and that happens in the World Cup, who's going to play 15 or 10?
The challenge,
you know,
that they've got to look at now. I look at Tonga from the weekend. Are they going to get the match that they're looking for out of Tonga? And what are they going to bring? And as a hit-out, would you expect this to be what they're looking for, given the selection might not be the selection they're anticipating 2.5 weeks later?
Yeah, I think it's just have to be an opportunity where they actually get to run through some of the stuff, because they've got South Africa just around the corner, biggest game of the pool stages, haven't they? So they'll be wanting to be ready to go for that and try a few things, I'm sure.
Can you expect, though, Tonga to be enough of a threat? No disrespect to Tonga, because on the weekend they were good against Fiji, probably did enough to win this game. Are they good enough? Are they going to be good enough on the weekend to challenge the All Blacks in the areas they need to challenge them?
Well, it's our mindset. Yeah. I will say no with the greatest respect, and you know, that's just being honest. Yeah. If our mindset is not 1 foot on the plane, like we all know what it's like to play Tonga, and you want to go to a Rugby World Cup, and you know it's going to be physical. But if the All Blacks' attitude is physical and they're on song, they'll completely wipe the floor with Tonga. And you know, it's a mental thing for me.
I'm with Marcia on that. The crucial element is the mental side of the Tonga match. Why they put that game on, we don't know. But the reality is, if you don't go into it full noise,
you'll probably get hurt.
You're going to get hurt, and so they're going to have to play their top team. So Barrett needs to start at fullback, to me. And because that's where we want to play him, against South Africa. So he's got to play at fullback.
But surely Josh a dress
rehearsal
going to play 10.
Josh is going to play 10.
OK, so
he's got to play 10. That's what
This is a dress rehearsal for the World Cup, though.
It is.
They're playing the guys who are going to be over there.
So that's what I'm. So I don't know why we haven't taken. If we're going to play the dual pivot, then I would have left a 9 at home, with all due respect to who you leave home. And you take a third.
Hey, here's one for you. Here's one. I know we probably have to move on, but maybe they don't play Ioane. He's on the bench, and they play this other first five. This Perenara or...
Barrett. No, it's Barrett.
Geordie Barrett or whoever.
Yeah,
it's a perfect opportunity.
It's a perfect opportunity.
No, and so what I think we should do is we should put Beauden Barrett back to first five and put Ben Smith to fullback in his preferred position.
No, I agree with Harley.
But we're going to disagree on so many things over the next 6 or 7 weeks through the Rugby World Cup. Well, the All Blacks, of course, they head to Japan next week, but last week they were up and down the country from the deep south to the far north.
Imagine being able to meet them, so it's really cool that they've come here today.
Oh, awesome. They've been lovely so far and so friendly. see Agus Taubau is making a hit with the kids. They love talking about their favourite ice cream with them. So, yeah, no, it's been good. It's been really good.
Over 1,000 people here, and we got welcomed in with an awesome haka. The people just, giving us love, and Waiata as well, they sang to us, and the energy's been awesome, and we've loved coming up here and seeing, what people are thinking, and, they're all wishing us luck and hoping that we go pretty well.
Far out. I just took about 20 minutes getting from one side of the field to the other, just because everyone's asking for a photo and stuff, so, it's awesome, because not too long ago, I was that little kid trying to get a photo or whatnot, so, the scene in happy years is awesome.
Very exciting times for women's rugby, especially for us there in the north. It's our first year in the competition for the Wharapana, so it's pretty awesome to actually get them up here and getting them involved with the younger kids of the generations coming through.
My mates were at school, they just left before, so I called Mum and Dad and I told them to come grab me. I was like, yeah, let's go, yeah.
They were very nice, kind and good people. It's an honour for Whangarei to have All Blacks in our town, because we never get this opportunity that much to have good as rugby players in a town like this.
When I was a young fella coming here, this place was called Okara Park. We used to travel down from where I come from. It was about 3.5 hour trip back in the day, and I still remember all the All Blacks. Mike Burgoyne was a huge favourite of mine. Sid Going, of course, was God up here, and all those guys were my heroes. So for these kids to be able to shake the hand of an All Black and talk with them, it's something pretty special. I've never forgotten it, that's for sure.
Welcome back to The Breakdown. Yes, we've talked about the surprise non-selection of Owen Franks. The two most talked about positions in the selection debate were the loose forwards and the midfield. There are only a certain number of positions for a certain number of players. We're going to talk about the midfield to start with Marshy, and for Ryan Crotty, who's played very little football in recent time. He finds his way into the All Blacks. Were you surprised about his selection?
I wasn't, actually. I don't want to start an argument between you and I just as we're starting this piece, but for me, he was one of the first names on the list.
He's mine too. I'm with you.
Perfect. Well, there you go. We're in agreement. This is going to be a success.
Easy.
Straight away.
Yeah, piece of cake. Well, I look at him, I look at the way that he plays the game. I think he's a little bit different to the other players who are out there. You bring in his experience. There are a number of aspects of his game you have to like. And for me, one of them, Marshy, is his ability to organise his team defensively, one of the best communicators. He links well with the players around him.
Think about some of the greatest centres in the game, 12 and 13s. They're great defenders, but equally, they're very good communicators. Now, look at Ryan Crotty here. He's recognised the threat. There's obviously numbers that are stacked against him. He's asking for support and help. He's been communicating, and now he sits back and waits. He doesn't rush forward. He doesn't do anything stupid. He holds and waits. He ends up shifting in behind Enor, but still makes the tackle, shuts down that threat.
Understands where the space is going to be and what type of pressure to bring. And here, once again, just look at his ability to scan. A good defender recognising it's not about the ball. It's about recognising where the threats are and then helping players around him make good decisions.
Absolutely. You can see there. And then he goes up. He makes sure that he stays in sync, talks again, cutting back in, still communicating, and then again, looking up, regrouping, resetting, making sure that everybody, he can see Beauden Barrett way in the background, he's pointing to the other side.
And in particular, his ability and understanding to come forward. Yes, a poor pass, but how do I stop the threats? There are multiple ways, and you have to be physical, you have to be dominant, and here, not just about getting him on the ground, the ability to keep the player in the air.
Absolutely. He's a smart footballer, and that's what you need. You need a good, intelligent footballer who leads the back line, communicates, recognises that a defender was compromised, got underneath him, held him up, affected the turnover.
You talk about that, you talk about that mindset, that skill set, that's what he brings to the team. You then go to the other side of the ball. There are two positions which have the ability to impact the game, midfield backs and loose forwards on both sides of it. On attack, his ability to put other players in holes.
Absolutely. And what you really like about Ryan Crotty, for me, is his line speed. So he goes aggressively at the line. He doesn't do it half-heartedly. He's positive. He's got a good attitude. As we rolled it on, you can see he's engaged. He showed the ball. But look who he's eyeing up, that second defender. And that sets the hole for Taufua to go through. Ryan Crotty accelerating onto the ball.
Ball in two hands, eyeing the opposition, controls his foot speed. Here he could quite easily accelerate into the contact. He doesn't. He just goes slightly sideways, engages on the defender on the outside, puts him into the space, a guy plays away. These are visions, these are little plays that come with experience, but it's the variety in his skill set. And here, his ability to stay in support and underrated speed for a player who quite often is talked about as the fact maybe not being as quick as others.
But he is. And the support lines are perfect. So he's holding his depth. When he needs to accelerate, he does. Sees the opportunity. The defenders can't stay with him. And so it's not just the work in defence or putting other players into space. It's his support play as well. He just understands the game so well.
We agree he should be in the team and going to the Rugby World Cup. JK, do you see him as being one of the best 4 midfield backs to be going to Japan?
Yeah, but you left something out.
What have I left out? Did you think we could find a way for more players to go?
I totally agree with your analysis. You're dead right. I think he's outstanding, but I still think he's one of the luckiest players because he hasn't stayed on the football field for 3 seasons. That's my only issue. So I agree that Ali said before that Steve Hansen's way is if you get injured, we don't take that into account, but he just hasn't played a lot. So if you're Nani Lamapi, you're going, well, I'm out there sweating it out and playing. So I'm not saying he shouldn't be there because you're right.
Is the same argument
he's
not
lucky because he's been injured a lot.
Is the same argument not for Sonny Bill Williams, though?
Yeah, but he played the last couple of weeks, and if you had left him out because he hadn't played, everyone would have said, oh, that's fair enough. Fair?
No, I don't think... In saying that, though, it's the skill set they
you're
bring.
out.
He had to go to counties to play Sonny.
And he got good hit outs, and then, but literally,
so
Crotty...
We can't argue technically, brilliant. He is, I reckon, one of the best. I reckon Bowden, when he was at 10, played better when Ryan was out there. The only reason I say he was lucky is he just hasn't been out there, and that's not his fault.
Yes, and that we can certainly agree on. But I think he's going to be an integral part of this Rugby World Cup. Well, just after 30 minutes of All Black rugby, Luke Jacobson has found his way in a Rugby World Cup. Squires and Marsha, you and I have been on tour. We were in Argentina. I'll tell you what, he's a bit bigger than I thought he was. You sort of all of a sudden get him in person. He's 191. 107 kgs and probably getting bigger. When you look at him and you look at the way that he approaches the game, here's a guy that's got a real physicality and attitude about it.
Absolutely, and it's what the All Blacks have always liked as their blindside flanker. Somebody big and strong like Jacobson is, and he's got the ability to be physical. And you know, Steve Hansen came out when he was talking about Luke Jacobson and said what he is with his size, his strength and his mobility and his work rate is he's uncompromising in defence, and that's what we want. Someone who hits hard and has got attitude.
And he was a standout player, though, in terms of his workout through Super Rugby, but so much more to his game in the fact that not only can he carry, he's got the ability to offload, put other guys into space. He's a guy who accelerates through the contact, the leg drive. Here's a guy, for me, that can play all 3 loose forward positions.
Absolutely. Watch the offload, but keep your eye on home. You want to watch the ball, but he's back on his feet in the background. So he's not thinking about what he's done really, really well. He's thinking about what can I do next. This is another example of staying in the game, Jeff.
He doesn't take a break. He's looking at the opportunity. Look at this. Reads the opportunity straight away. He's going, we can reload on the short side. Puts his hand up. All of a sudden, there's an opportunity for him to carry. Just watch through here. Steps through. The fend, leg drive, carries on. You're talking about that sort of momentum, the sort of fight we see from Marty Savia. That sort of momentum opens up an opportunity for his teammate. For me, it's the fact he's got the ability, the change of pace, the acceleration. It's more than just a blindside flanker. Yeah. It's that ability as an open side at that acceleration and tracking of the ball that you can get out of him.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. And I think that's what the All Blacks are after. They're wanting him to make sure that he can provide the work rate that the whole forward pack needs to get that physicality in it as well. And I think equally as important is our kicking game.
And let's talk about the kicking game, because it was vastly different in Auckland to when it was in Perth against the Wallabies, and it was about finding space and the type of kicks the All Blacks opted to use.
They did. They were very clever in the way that they executed their kicking game in Auckland compared to what they've been like so far this season. This is Aaron Smith with what we used to call the little 50, the little half kick. Not hitting it 100, 50 into the gap, finds the space. The defenders are struggling to get back to it. Karevi can't handle it, and they've got wingers who want to chase. Equally, look at Bowden Barrett, heads up. Look at that defensive line. What are you going to do against that?
And that's the defensive line we've been facing for a long time now. Teams coming up and putting pressure on taking the space. It's the weight of the kicks, the recognition. Brother to brother always helps, a little bit of connection there, but the commitment to it. And from here, Marshy, perfect recognition of the space once again.
Well, it certainly is. There's a very good arc in that Australian defence with Beale sort of sitting back a little bit, but Bowden Barrett shifts it to the the player who has seen the space, which is Geordie. As we roll it on, you can see there, Beale comes up because of the running threat, has to. He's already made up his mind, Geordie Barrett, gets the kick perfect because he takes it to the line, brings in 2 defenders. Sevu Reece recognises straight away where the space was. His follow-up is absolutely perfect. Beale can't get back in time because of the speed of Sevu Reece. Across from the other wing was Hodge. Then the skill set of him to tow it forward and finish it off. A kicking game that is bringing reward. It's scoring tries for us now.
And until this game, we've been using structure with ball in hand to find space, trying to break down the front line of defence by turning the ball in behind, push teams into so much pressure. Great opportunities for the All Blacks going forward. Is that what they're going to use? Well, of course, that's a lot of talk about the All Blacks. New Zealand Rugby has been delivering in the last few seasons their Head First campaign, which is about their mental health and well-being. And this weekend, a very special initiative goes live in Hamilton.
Team, we need to talk.
685 people died by suicide.
More Kiwis are taking their own lives than ever before.
That's the highest number on record.
And 3 out of 4 were men.
It is one of our really difficult challenges as a nation.
How do we normally mark a tragedy of this scale? With silence.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
But in this case, silence isn't the answer.
Being able to talk about mental health is something that is not perceived to be easy, and it isn't easy.
No one thinks less of you for sharing your thoughts. No one thinks less of you for dealing with a mental illness, and just talk about it.
We all want to help those tackling tough times, because it's normal to feel vulnerable, anxious, or just a bit down. And we want it to be just as normal to talk about it. So, on the 7th of September, we'll ask fans at the game to join us in a moment against silence. A moment for everyone to talk, to reach out to their mates, and to make as much noise as they can to show support for our men.
JK, another step forward, another opportunity to show support for players and people around New Zealand alike.
Yeah, so important. Really, really important that you connect with your community. And when I say your community, you've got to talk to your immediate family if they're the ones, your mates, and listen to experts, reach out and get help. So that's so important, so important for mental health. Great to see so many people in different walks of life, famous people starting to come out and talk about it, because we've all got physical health, right? And we've all got mental health. And sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down, and you're going to go through those cycles. And the best thing to do is to talk about it, share it with your mates and your family, and you'll be surprised how much better you feel. So, good initiative.
And the players, and we saw it last year, we went inside their environments and they started talking about that very thing amongst themselves. And great to see it amongst our professional environment. Let's shift our attention now to the Eye in the North. We're now the #1 team in the world again. How did that happen? I don't know. Augustine Pichot doesn't know. No one knows. Let's just focus on the fact, the performances on the weekend. Ali, I'm going to go straight to you. Look, I don't know what to make of any of these games, because it was A team versus B team every week. You were never sure, but an important win maybe for Ireland.
Yeah, Ireland needed to win that game. I mean, they got thumped the week before, absolutely thumped. They would have put Joe Smith on edge. Wales didn't play their strongest side, but I don't think we can read too much into this. They play each other a lot. I think they'll still be bringing different elements to the World Cup, Rugby World Cup. I think it lacks the typical edge that we see in the Northern Hemisphere battles, Marshy, as we know when we're up there. They do have an edge, and these lack those edges, so they're not giving you that sense of realism where both teams are. You agree?
Yeah, the desperation's not there, is it? And the quality of who's playing sort of typifies that. So, look, ultimately, the world rankings don't matter leading into this tournament. Where you sit 1 or 4 or 5 has no real relevance at all to this tournament, but Wales didn't handle the pressure very well, did they?
No,
from 1 to 4, just like that.
For me, it's ridiculous even talking about it. I don't know why World Rugby bothers with those communications, because the world #1 is going to be on November the 4th, isn't it?
Yes.
So forget it this early. They're practice games. We don't care. They don't care. So, and why bring them out this time of year?
Well, they've got to justify the paycheck we give them every 4 years. So by creating a ranking.
Are you paying somebody? You do? You're not paying anybody, are you?
World Rugby is the only business entity in the world that survives off one revenue stream, being the Rugby World Cup. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, all right. Look, I'll tell you someone who's not going to be there is Devon Toner. And it's not because of this piece of action, which saw Scott Barrett get suspended for 3 weeks. There it is there. What's that, a shoulder to the back of the head?
Yep.
Well, that's a double. Watch the next one. Watch this as well.
And he's got him as well.
What's the next one?
He's been dropped,
comes
though.
in, boom, what's that?
So, the difficult one I have with this, Crocky, he's been replaced by a guy who's just become eligible for Ireland in the last month from out of South Africa. How does that work? And is that fair for a guy who's had that much commitment to the jersey? Would you, if you're inside that group, you're going to do that to him?
It's tough, isn't it? Far out. He's been a stalwart for the Irish rugby for a long, long time, Devon Toner, and quality player. So, but rules are rules, and Joe Smith's obviously decided that it's important to include this other guy.
It's the cost of professionalism, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the view of having one coach. His view is that this guy is better than that guy. E.g., Owen Franks, what was happening here, selection, all that sort of stuff. It's professional. There's money on the line. There's lifelines on the line. I'll take that decision. I'm sorry, I'm going to cop it, and that's what Joe Smith's done.
Tough on the player.
Oh, really?
There's no doubt Ireland are there to win. They believe they're good enough to win this year's Rugby World Cup. Stay with us. There's plenty more after the break. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Stay with us.
So we have an aftermatch and put on a barbecue and food. We have the Cleveland Coast oysters, we put on sausages and steaks, so it's a pretty good spread. And the opposition usually love coming out here because the aftermatch is just as good as the rugby.
To all the fathers out there, Happy Father's
Day! One good try on 80.
Yeah, outstanding once again. Our community game is connected to our professional game. It's great to see the grassroots continuing to develop. Well, Mitre 10 Cup, the last 3 weeks have been fantastic. Great action. It's where do we start? We'll start with the team that's on top form. He's sitting beside me. Crocky, let's talk about your performance on the weekend. This game had a bit of an edge about it. There was a physicality. Did you guys target this game specifically, Taranaki in Taranaki, as a big matchup?
Yeah, well, look, it's kind of one of those derby games now. We've got a bit of a rivalry with Taranaki going back a few years. They probably had the upper hand on that rivalry, so we knew it was going to be big. They've obviously started the season a lot better than they did the last couple of years, so we knew they were playing good footy. And
how's it connected with your community? I mean, how much all of a sudden have the locals, because they've always been very, very supportive of your team, are they getting a bit excited about what they're seeing and the possibilities?
Oh, the community get behind the Makas like you wouldn't believe. It's amazing. People wearing the kit around.
Are they shopping at the right place?
They come to Stirling Sports in Nelson, mate.
Oh, there it is!
They do. It must be just about coming.
They genuinely do love the team, and it's looking forward to getting back to Trafalgar Park. We've had a couple of great weeks over in Blenheim, but yeah.
We talk about unearthing talent. It happens every year. And Hawke's Bay, they've found one, Nera Fomai, sorry. 3 tries on the weekend. Both Hawke's Bay and Bay Plenty in great form. But Marshy, every year there's someone who shows up, puts his hand up, and I know that there are spots around in Super Rugby this year. It's not like other years. There are opportunities.
Well, not only that, there's spots in the All Blacks. Look, everybody sort of does at times question the Mitre 10 Cup and its relevance. I never do. Like, I love that provincial sort of camaraderie that it brings out to players and to the unions, and what it is an advocate that there's a Sevu Reece out there. You know, like Sevu Reece went from Mitre 10 Cup form to Super Rugby to an All Black in a calendar year.
Nahi
Milaskata. This is the bread and butter of, as Ken Laban calls it, the heart and soul of New Zealand rugby. It is. And the talent that we're seeing here goes on to be future All Blacks, and this is the stepping stone.
I'm so in agreement with Marshy. That is our difference worldwide.
Yep.
That is why we've got a great All Black side, because we just keep producing, and we need to really, invest in that game. I think it's fantastic, and the rugby's great.
And that's why we need to use it as a powerhouse when we come to negotiations around how we, as New Zealand Rugby, look after our players. So to me, this is why we say to Australia, come and join our competition, we'll let you in, and we grow that. And commercially, what we need to do is we need to make that competition viable, because unfortunately it's not commercially viable, is it?
No.
It's producing the talent. Carl Tunukiafi also was last year, came from nowhere. So this is it's simply the best tournament there is for unearthing talent. We've got to make it commercially viable so it stays alive.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I watched the French competition, and ours is just as good.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It is awesome. And we play on real grass, not artificial turf. Like
Yeah, that's how we roll.
What's up with that?
Tough.
What is up with that? No artificial turf in Japan either. Oh, well, that's not going to help you in France. Time now, we've palmed off. The good, the bad and the ugly. It's all yours, Steph. Bring us home. What do we got?
Yep, so we put our heads together this week and we've come up with our good, bad and the ugly from the weekend. So we'll start with the good. Now, we can always appreciate a good hit no matter what code. So check out this massive NFL hit.
I can't appreciate this at all.
Mishandles it a second time and then gets buried. Lehigh will scoop it up. Teams for Lehigh. The punter mishandles it. Here goes ball. Just a shot. I didn't see him.
Hit him again.
The quarterback's not untouchable, and that's why you wouldn't be the kicker right there.
Wasn't he the kicker?
He was. You wouldn't be the kicker. Now, all of a sudden, your hands are up. You mentioned kicker earlier on. What's next, Steph?
Okay, so moving on to the bad. So we've got ex-teammates Naholo and Squire having a bit of a scrap.
Where were you?
Oh, no, I was sort of there. I was wrestling.
Oh, here it comes, here it comes, here it is. Oh, yeah. Oh, choke off.
Hang on.
And great refereeing, no yellow card.
Had a bear hug. You were a little wee bear hug to finish, and that's no damage done. No damage done whatsoever.
Are you guys? I can't even see Crocky on there.
Yeah, Crocky's there. He's just worked his way out of shot.
See, people think that's weird, don't they? That their teammates would attack each other like that, but that happens all the time at training. People just don't see that.
Exactly. It's a game. What's happening in that field, mate? You got to.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea.
Okay.
The ugly. The ugly, and this is my favourite.
No, I don't mean to make fun of him, but have a look at this Ash Dixon dive.
Well, look, there's no doubt they're very good at this. And the perfect setup. Ash Dixon gets in the right position, Ali, and just what does he do wrong? He's 5 metres short. He is 5 metres short. Then a beautiful ball placement.
Goal.
Look at this. Oh, hold on. Oh, no. Here we go. Bit of and then rotate. Outstanding. He did then, in his post-match interview, what did he say? He said he owed the team a box of beers. I don't think one box is going to be good enough. Notice board, Steph, what's up?
Yeah, moving on to the notice board. So as we know, the All Blacks are playing Tonga this weekend in Waikato. Kick-off is at 2:35 and there's still some tickets available to that game. The curtain raiser to that game is the Legends game, which kicks off at 12:10. And also this weekend, the Whara Palmer Cup. We've got 3 double headers. Counties are playing Manawatu, Auckland, Canterbury and Otago playing Taranaki.
I am excited about the curtain raiser in Hamilton. I really am. Marshy, you're working. You're working as well. So, and you're playing on the weekend. Jake,
I'm excited that I'm watching.
You're watching?
Me
you
too.
look at this contest. Let's be honest,
but they're fit, those guys.
Mate, I went for a walk the other day and I'm still in pain. So imagine if I put a pair of boots on and I try to run.
You've got a pair of boots, though. Who's coming to get yours?
Big Jace Chandler. I wish him all the best, mate. He's out there with some shiny new wheels and just...
I know it's a...
Good luck to you.
Well done,
good luck to you. Well done.
A couple of leagueies are out there as well. I see Monty Beetham stripping up for a game of football. What do you think? Ruben, is he?
They've got abs and stuff.
Seriously?
Ridiculous.
Yeah,
They've got abs and
that's
stuff.
Just dangerous.
Have you got any interest in that?
They're in great nick, those boys.
Well, don't ask him, mate. If there's a game, he put the boots on. He's like, I'm keen.
But have you finally hung them up?
Yeah.
You have not.
How good is it? These players are all coming together for a great cause to basically make a real big game of this whole All Blacks Tonga thing. They've really got behind it commercially and everything, and players are coming out, Carlos Spencer and all the like, for a bit of fun. It's entertainment, isn't it? It's to give the crowd something else. It's to say, here we go, this is magical.
Are you on the payroll again?
What do you mean? I'm trying to get paid.
Selling.
I'm trying to get paid here, mate. I'm trying to get paid here.
Usually they're buying, you are selling. Thanks, Crocky. Hey, mate, good luck this weekend against County Marshy, as always. JK, Ali, what a fantastic weekend in front of us. We will see you next Tuesday.